guys, welcome to today's tutorial. I'm going to be showing you how to make a basic 6-piece skirt. Now this 6-piece skirt, I'm going to be using a different method to draft it. I basically designed this method for you. It's the simplest and easiest method. Now I have 2.5 yards of material here. This is the good face of the material, this is the bad face of the material, and I'm going to be drafting this pattern directly on the material. I'm not going to be using any external pattern for it, so I'm going to be drafting it directly on the pattern. Now I'm going to be using the entire 2.5 yards of this material. Now this material is folded into 2 equal parts here, so I'm going to be ensuring that I fold it into 4. Now this folding it into 4 is going to give me the entire front and the back piece of my 6-piece skirt that I need. Okay, it's not that I'm going to be cutting the middle, front and back separately and cutting the sides separately like the other methods. I'm going to be cutting it directly together, both front and back. So as you can see, I've folded my material into 4. This first 2 parts here is going to be giving me the front piece of my skirt. This 2 back that has the open end here is going to be giving me the back piece of my skirt. Now before I continue, I would like to educate you a little. There's what we call the folded end, the open end, the middle front folded end, and of course the back middle front, which is always an open end. The back always has this open end because it has a zip, so we always give the open end to the back. Meanwhile, the middle front has to be this closed end. If your middle front is open, that means your skirt is going to have a cut, a line in front of it, which is not good, which is not ideal. Okay, and also when you are folding here, you can see I gave a little allowance. We'll be needing like 1 inch allowance here for the zip. We call it zip allowance, so we leave that out there. Then we are going to be working on the remaining part of our fold. So this side, this 2 closed end, is going to be our hip side, the shaping side, while here is going to be our middle front and back. And I'm going to ensure that as I'm drafting now, this end of the fabric will stand as my full length line. So already I've shown you the introduction video. Please, you want to watch that, and also how to take your basic measurement for your skirt. Please watch the video so that you understand better, and then go ahead to prepare your measurements before you continue. For this client, her waist to full length is 40 inches. Now if you leave it exactly at 40 inches, it may reduce at the end of the day because of the hemming of both the waist and the down. And in case you want it to be longer, you don't want your shoes to be showing, you can increase it to as much as 45 inches is your call. But for here, I'm going to be making it just 41 inches. I'm going to be adding just 1 inch at the full length line for the hemming allowance. So that will now give us our full length line. You can see that my edge here is very straight, so I'm good to go. So I'm going to mark out my waistline from the beginning down to the end of it. 41 inches is what I'll be using from the beginning to the end. 41 inches to give me my waistline. So like I said in the introduction video, you want to have all your sets, your rulers and whatsoever it is you need, all your French curve, your hip curves and the rest. But like I said, I'm a big fan of freehand drafting. I draft my freehand, and of course it comes out very well. Having these tools that you need to sew is very necessary, but that does not mean that your clothes will come out well. No, it won't. It's how technical, how good you are when you are sewing, that will determine how your dress will come out. So my client's waist to hip is 9 inches. I'm taking my time to explain this bit by bit for those that are entirely beginners, so that you don't get lost in any way. So please, the advanced students, please bear with me for the sake of the others. And my client's waist to above knee is 18 inches. I'm going to mark out that line as well. 18 inches. Make sure that your line is straight, very straight. So now that is all my length. I'll be needing my waistline, hip line, above the knee line, of course my full length line. So the next step in drafting a basic 6-piece skirt is this. I'm going to go ahead and mark out my width. If you look at the measurements I gave you, you can see now that I have finished my length. I've started with my length. That's why I arranged it this way for you. I started with my length, my waist to hip, waist to hip, waist to above the knee, and of course waist to full length. The next thing now is my bust span, or that's what I'm going to be filling on. I'm starting from my waist. Remember I said this is my middle front, and of course your bust span is always at the middle part of your clothes. So from there I begin to mark out my client's bust span. And remember your bust span or your dart is divided into 2 when drafting. Her bust span there is 8 inches, and I'm going to divide it into 2. That will give me 4 inches. So from the waistline this way, I'm going to mark out 4 inches. Now for the circumference and the width, you have to turn your tape horizontally on your fabric to mark out. But for the length, you place your tape vertically when you are marking out. So please note that. So from the middle front of the front part, not the back, middle front, the front part, I'm going to mark out 4 inches all the way down to the full length line, and then connect all my markings. Please use a ruler. I'm a freehand method person. Now let's go back to our measurement. After establishing that my client, I'm done with my that, which is my width, is my only width measurement. I'm going over to my circumference. Now when you want to determine how wide your cloth is, you work with your largest circumference, and here my largest circumference is the hip, which is 36 inches. It may turn out that your client's largest measurement may be her round waist because of her body shape, okay, but for this one is her round hip, which is 36. When divided into 4 is 9 inches. Okay, so now we want to see how many we are left. Remember, this is the hip line, so we are working directly on the hip line. From this 4 inches line down here, let's see what we have left. We have about 20 inches left, okay, to work with. Now out of these 20 inches for our hip, we said is 9 inches, right? 9 inches, we have removed 4 inches from it to give our bust span. So 9 minus 4 will be left with what? 5 inches. So from this 20 inches here that we have, we are going to minus that 5 inches from it. So 20 minus 5, that is remaining, will give us 15. Now that 15 inches, we are going to be sharing it accordingly. This side, the hip side, is going to take the largest share. So if we are to divide, and this other middle side is going to take the remaining part, and that means it's 3. We are going to divide that 15 inches into 3. If we are dividing it equally, here will take 10, here will take 5. But because of the allowances, the seam allowances, we are going to increase here, okay, by 2. So that means this side is going to be having 7 inches, while here is going to be having 4 and 4, that's 8 inches. And if you add that up together, it's going to give us our 15 inches that we have left. So let's do that. So here it's going to be giving us 8 inches. From our dart, we mark out 8 inches. Please, you want to replay this part again so that you fully understand what I just said, the calculation I just made, so that you fully understand it. Please replay. Then at this full length line here, you will divide this 8 into 2 rather. So 4, 4. Now if you are using up to 3 yards, you may have up to 10 inches here for you to use. Now this is totally dependent on your client's round hip. If your client's round hip is larger, you know how to adjust here to give it a better shape so that it can contain your client's round hip very well. So you draw a straight line for that 8 inches. Remember this marking, I divided it into 2. I can go ahead and divide it all into 2 from beginning to end, but that would be a waste of time. Just at the full length line, you can do that division there. So now let's go back to our measurement, starting from the round waist, which is our circumference that we are dealing with now. Our round waist is 28, and when drafting, we divided it by 4, which is 7 inches. Now for this 7 inches, for the middle front, we are taking out 4 inches for our dart, our bust span. So remainder 3 inches, 7 minus 4, remaining 3. So from this 8 inches line that we drew here, don't start from here. This is all going to be cut out and it turn out the waist later on. So from this 8 inches line, we mark out that 3 inches for the remainder of our waist. So by the time here joins with here, it will give you back your 7 inches that you need. That is for the waist. My client's round hip now is 9 inches. That 9 inches, we are taking 4 inches here for the front dart. Remainder 5. 9 minus 4 is 5. So I come here and mark out the 5 inches. By the time here this part gets joined with this part, we'll give it back my 9 inches. Then for the above the knee, there is no actual round measurements for the above the knee. Well, how do we get the shaping for the above the knee? Whatever you have on your hip, you minus 1 or 2 inches, depending on how tight or how fitted you want it to be at your above the knee point. So if you are minusing 2, you know that it's going to be very fitted, it's going to be very tight at your knee point, above the knee point. But if you are minusing 1 inches from your hip, you know that that's an average shape. Okay, so I'm going to be minusing just 1. So if the remaining part of my hip here is 5 inches, I'm going to minus 1. 5 minus 1 will be giving me 4. You can minus 2. 5 minus 2 will be giving you 3. You mark it 3. Let me show you both lines so that you see how shapy your clothes will turn out to be. So let me connect my lines together. Like I said, I'm a very big fan of freehand. You can see if I'm minusing 2 from the hip, see where my shape will come. But if I'm minusing just 1 from the hip line, see where my shape will meet. You can see this other 2 inches is very tight, it's very fitted, but this other one at least is okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and mark out my allowance, seam allowance. I'm giving just 2 inches for the seam allowance. At the waistline, I'm adding 2 inches. At the hip, I'm adding 2 inches. But for the above the knee, I'm going to see minus 1 inch for my seam allowance, or maybe half an inch, make it 1.5 there. So if you are using this 1 inch division line, you do. But if I'm using this other 2 inch division line, it's your call. I'm using just the 1 inch line. Then you connect your points together. So it is from the allowance line now. You now draw a straight line slanting outwards to the full length line here at this point. So you want to do that. You want to connect the line from the allowance line here all the way down. Please use your ruler so that you can get a very straight line outward. Now let's go back to our middle front side. Remember, I took out 8 inches here after my calculations, and then I divided that 8 inches into 2 as well. That is 4 inches here. So that will also help us. From this point, I'm going to be slanting outwards. From this point, I'm going to be slanting outwards. So from my knee, above the knee point here, I'm going to be slanting outwards to meet that 4 inches line. The same thing goes opposite direction for this other middle front side. From the above the knee point, I'm slanting outwards towards the 4 inches line. Now this is what will give me my basic 6 pieces pattern. I am done. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out on the border lines this way. Using my scissors, your fabric scissors, I'm going to be cutting out on the border lines this way. Then here as well. Then straight forward, because this is my 1 inch zip allowance. So I'll go ahead and start cutting, and I'll show you when I'm done. So guys, I finished cutting it out, but before I remove it, let me explain again for the benefit of those who didn't get it at first. Now, for this method of cutting 6 pieces skirt that I use here, I'm going to be using my largest circumference, which is 9 inches. Now, after drawing my dart line 4 inches, now I'm going to measure the remaining part of my material that I have from that 4 inches line. I have 20 inches here now to spare. So before I go ahead to do anything, I have to secure my hip, which is my largest circumference. Now I've already taken 4 inches here, and my hip is 9. 9 minus 4, remaining 5. So I have to come and minus that 5 from this 20 inches so that I know that my hip measurement is secured. So 20 minus 5 will be remaining 15. Now that 15, you can see the slanting line I gave. 1, 2, 3 slants. So that means I'm going to be having 3 slants in total for this 6 pieces skirt. Now I have to divide this remaining 15 inches by 3 for the 3 of them. And if I'm dividing 15 inches by 3, I'll be having 5 inches each. That means here I'm supposed to be having 5 inches, 5 inches, and here also 5 inches. But I'm considering this part of the skirt, this other side, because it carries the allowance, and I'm giving it 2 inches seam allowance. So I have to borrow 1 inches from this other side to add here, making a total of 7. So here is going to be 7. Now 15 minus 7 will give me 8 inches. That is why I'm having 8 inches here for this both part, and I'm dividing this side by 4 into 2, which is giving me 4. So 4 here, and 7 here will give me altogether 15 inches plus my hip, which is 5 and 2. So that is how I got this measurement. I hope you understand. Please like and subscribe and give it a thumbs up. So after cutting, this is what I'll be left with. So this part now, remember I cutted it into 4. So here for the sides, I'm going to be having 4 for my 2 for my front side and 2 for my back sides as well. So this is 4 pieces, and then this is my middle front, as you can see. Then this is my middle back. I'll go ahead and put my zip and then join the back. Then so let me just show you how it's going to be. This is my middle back. I've kept aside, and I've picked out 2 of the sides for my back. So let me open my middle front into 2 so you can see. So you can see, so this is how it's going to be. Now this one, I'm going to be sewing it this way. I'm going to be sewing it this way using about ½ an inch allowance to sew it. By the time I finish sewing it and turn it, it's going to give me my 6-piece skirt. The same goes to here as well. So now I'm going to go ahead now and cut my interfacing, my lining for this skirt. If you are going to be using a full lining, that is for an advanced student. I'm not going to be doing that. For the beginners, I'm just going to be using half lining to make this dress, this skirt rather. So if you're going to be using a full lining, you have to cut each and every piece like this exactly on the lining as long as it is. You just give 1 inch allowance. The line is going to be shorter than the main fabric by just 1 inch at the full length line, so that by the time you turn it, the lining will not be showing outside when your client puts it on. But for the half allowance, which is going to be stopping at the above the knee length, you have to go ahead and join your front bodies together and your back bodies together, after which I'm going to show you how to attach your half lining to it. So remember, for the front piece, I've already shown you how to join it. For the back as well, it's the same thing. Do not join the zipper side first. Leave that side first. It's after you turn your lining, your half lining with it, that is when you'll be joining your zip side to it. So for your back piece as well, you're going to be placing the sides accordingly to it. So you place it this way, you sew using 1/2 inch allowance. Make sure they are all aligned together. When you open it, you'll be having one side of the back, and of course this other side of the back as well. Okay, you sew using 1/2 inch allowance. By the time you open it, you'll be having this. Then you go ahead and cut out your linings. Let me go ahead and sew it and then show you. Guys, I finished joining using 1/2 inch allowance. This is the back side of the front piece, and this is the back piece of my 6 pieces skirt, and this is the back as well. I joined the back separately from each other. As you can see, this is the back, one side of the back, and this is the other side of the back piece. Alright, so now I'm done with the back piece, so I'm attaching it, and then I'll go ahead to do my shaping. Now, how do you shape after you finish making your skirt, attaching your lining? You're going to repeat the process again. Waist to hip is 9, waist to above knee is 18, and remember my round hip that I use in my clients is 10 inches, so you mark out the 10. Around waist is 8 inches, mark out 8, and then for the above the knee 10 here, I'm going to minus 1, which is going to give me 9, so I curve it out. Then when I get here, just like I did when I was drafting it, I draw a straight line all the way down. Make sure that your line is straight. So you're going to stitch on it, you pin it so that it will be in place. The same thing goes for the other side as well. Your waist to hip 9, waist to above the knee 18, round waist is 8 inches, round hip is 10 inches, and the above the knee I'm going to reduce 1 inch from the hip, which will give me 9 inches. I connect all my curves together and then slant outwards till I get to the full length 9. Now you can see I'm doing this for my back piece because my back piece will give me the middle exactly, my middle point exactly. So I'm using my back piece to do the shaping. So I'll go ahead to my sewing machine and then sew round. After which I'm going to do the hemming. In case you are having any edges like this at the full length line after sewing that is not equal, all you need to do is just to trim it so that it will become equal. Then you do your double folding in case you are using half lining and not full lining like I'm using. After which I'm going to attach my waistband. Now I'm going to be making a video on how to attach waistbands, but that will be at the end of the entire tutorial. I'm not going to be attaching waistband on each of the skirts I'm teaching you, so I'll just use one of the skirts later on to show you how to attach waistband. So after shaping, you want to do your fittings. If it fits or there's any adjustments anywhere, you make that and you're done. After making your hemming allowance, your hemming at the full length and your waistband, then you're done. Alright, so let me just go on over to my sewing machine.